Hello and welcome to this week's Different League show, sponsored by Betfred. So the treble is still on for Manchester City as they win the Carabao Cup. Did Daniel Levy actually want Spurs to win it? And in the Champions League, have Chelsea got one foot in the final, or might they rue those missed chances in the first leg in Madrid? Lots to talk about with Mark Langdon and myself, and delighted to say Super Kev is with us. Kev Phillips, how are you?
Yeah, I'm good. Yourselves?
Very well, thank you. Been busy since we last saw you, or just busy watching lots of football?
Well, we can't get away from it, can you? It's on every night. But yeah, busy watching football, been to a few live games. So yeah, I wouldn't say I'm looking forward to the season finish, but it'll be a blessing when it does.
Yeah, and then we've got the Euros, of course, to think about as well, so it will be good. OK, this week's big talking points. Got to talk, first of all, your thoughts on the achievements of Pep Guardiola and City winning 4 League Cups in a row. Gary Neville said he thinks we'll look back and call Pep the greatest manager ever. Jamie Redknapp said he already is. Where do you fall on that?
I'm probably in the middle of that. I don't think he's the greatest yet, but I think we'll look back rightly in years to come and say that he was. Just of his achievements. Incredible to win 4 in a row. You know, what they can still achieve this year. The Champions League is the big one, isn't it? And they're favourites for their tie tonight. Favourites maybe for the competition as well. So I certainly think we'll look back and say, yes, he's up there. But for me at the moment, growing up, Sir Alex Ferguson, for me, sits right at the very top. But again, 10 years' time, we could be saying different.
Yeah, we'll wait and see. He's still got plenty of time left in the game if he wants it, hasn't he? What did you make of the game last Sunday, though, the final? Yeah,
it wasn't a fantastic game of football, and it wasn't probably them at their best. But, mate, they always find a way to win. Of course, they're coming up against a team that had their own problems or had their own problems. You know, debutant manager, his first managerial position, taking in a cup final, huge pressure. But
taking on Pep.
Yeah, taking on Pep. But, they find a way of winning. When they don't even play with a recognised striker, they still win a football match. And that's why, he's such a special coach. But it wasn't a fantastic game, but he got the job done, and 4 in a row, credit to them.
Yeah, Mark, Spurs, 2 shots, 1 on target. I could pick quotes from a lot of people. I've actually gone with Jamie O'Hara here, former Spurs midfielder and fan. We beat Brentford in the semis, they would have done better. You can't blame Ryan Mason, he's only been there a week. Who sacks Jose Mourinho? He's a man that wins titles and finals. Only Spurs would do that. Now, he's not the only one to think along those lines. My question to you is, did Daniel Levy want to lose the final more than he wanted Mourinho to win it? How did you feel watching it?
I don't feel like he wanted him to lose it, specifically, and sort of, think, it's better to lose it and not have Mourinho there. I felt that he was just looking at the bigger picture, and the bigger picture was that, Mourinho had to go. And
he could have done it a week later.
Yeah, I saw somebody say on O'Hara's comments, actually, that the only reason to have kept him would be a reason to cheer Tottenham fans on a Monday morning by saying we've sacked him, straight after. So, I think that relationship had completely gone. And I think the players, the players had almost given up, I felt, under Mourinho. And They did try in the final. It wasn't a lack of effort necessarily, and they threw their bodies on the line. They put blocks in. They just weren't good enough. They weren't brave enough in midfield. That's been an accusation against them for a while. But there's just a big difference between Manchester City and Tottenham. And had they been more attacking, it would have been really difficult, because then you're giving City more opportunities to counter-attack against you. So I think they tried to stay in the game for as long as possible, and then hoped with bringing on Bale and with Son and Kane on the pitch that something would fall for them.
They tried to stay in the game as long as possible, and they did by luck more than judgment. That was one of the most biggest wide-ranging 1-0s I think I've seen in a long, long time. How big a mess do you feel Spurs are in right now?
I feel like it's sortable with a coach that can come in and sort of put his own authority on it. They're going to be sort of pining for Pochettino for a while, but they need somebody to just come in, I think, and play a modern style of football.
Top coach is going to come in when he's not going to be given a lot of money and try and change this group of players that already didn't really go for Pochettino, certainly not for Mourinho.
First of all, Mourinho and his ability to win big matches. If you look at it, sort of how it's been at Tottenham, he's lost all of the big matches in recent months. They were thumped at City, they were beaten by Chelsea at home, they were beaten by Liverpool home and away. They lost at Arsenal and were pretty embarrassing.
He loves the trophy
in that game. But I don't think you can just turn it on for a cup final and say, right, I'm going to do things better in a cup final than we did, when we played Man City in the league, for instance. In terms of which coach would take it, I always felt they were shooting for the stars with like Nagelsmann, and he's gone to Bayern Munich, and that doesn't surprise me. I think Erik ten Hag is a really interesting one because that is a step up from Ajax. I think he does play really good football. He's a graduate of Pep Guardiola in as much as he was the Bayern Munich B team boss when Guardiola was in charge of the first. He did really well with Utrecht before he got the Ajax job as well. So I think he's somebody that would see Tottenham as sort of that next step, because there's only so far you can sort of go with Ajax despite them being a grand name. He'd be the one for me. And I know you like Graham Potter. Me too. And I know he's not a particularly big name. I think he'd do a good job.
I think he'd do a good job. Nuno would be my guy. But I want to ask you about Harry Kane. I mean, he clearly loves Spurs, but what's in it for him to stay at Spurs? And if you were him, what would you do?
I personally, in my opinion, I'd leave. I said at the beginning of last season, it was a season where Tottenham needed to win something to keep hold of Harry Kane. And it's not going to happen. For me, at his stage of his career, I would look to move on, whether it's possible in terms of the finances, whether anyone's going to pay that sort of money for someone of his age. And
well, he's got 3 years left in his contract.
Yeah, so as well.
And with
of course. And, he has picked up a few injuries in the last couple of seasons. So, it'd be a brave club to spend out 120, whatever million it's going to be. But if I was Harry Kane, I wouldn't be pushing too hard in the back, but I would be looking to move just to go and win some trophies. It's great. He won't need to work again. He'll have all the money in the world. But, if he looks back at the end of his career and he hasn't won anything, then he's won individual honours. But I think collectively, he wants to win honours. And, at this stage, for me, he's the best striker in the world. I would look to move. He is Mr. Tottenham. 3 years, Tottenham hold the cards. But I would be speaking to my agent in the background, and I'd be looking to move on in the summer, in my opinion.
His kids are set for life and his grandkids are set for life. It is about trophies, isn't it? That's what he wants. Do you feel he'll be there next season, and how do Spurs replace him?
I feel like he will, purely because of what Kevin was talking about there, and just the cost. And if you're going to spend that, you could probably bring in Haaland at that price, and Mbappe hasn't got long left on his contract. You might be able to go that little bit extra, and you've got same quality and for 5 more years. So I think it might be difficult for him to move. You look at sort of some other places, like, maybe Real Madrid in the past would have been interested, but I don't even think they've got the money. No. So were you looking at, if Mbappe left Paris Saint-Germain, could Pochettino try to get him there? It doesn't necessarily, it just feels like one of them guys moves. Haaland is the obvious one to come in, and so he is going to find it difficult. I totally agree that he deserves to be playing for Man City or a team of that ilk and sort of be playing at the highest level all the time. I suppose the only thing that maybe we haven't considered is that perhaps he is settled in London, or he sort of lives in Essex, but maybe he's settled in his area.
So he wants to go to Chelsea then?
Well, yeah, he'd do a better job than Timo Werner up front of putting away them chances at the moment. But I mean, that's not going to happen, is it, with the two?
I think another factor would be is who Tottenham appoint as manager as well. From his point of view, because he's a big voice in the dressing room. If he doesn't feel it's the right appointment, then he might want to move. I
suppose the only sort of positive, if you're looking at from a Tottenham point of view, is he basically plays when he wants. And, there's maybe been cup finals where he's played in that he's not been 100% fit. If you go to Manchester City, like, for instance, there'd be no guarantees that Pep Guardiola would play you in them biggest games anyway. He might prefer to play without a striker, and sort of getting used to that and getting your head around the fact that, that Premier League goal and the top goal scorer and Alan Shearer's record is maybe less achievable if you go somewhere where you're part of a bigger squad rotation, is something to consider. You'd hope he wouldn't.
But you'll get more chances when you do play.
Well, exactly. If you play 25 games for City, that's the equivalent of playing almost 60 games for Spurs, isn't it? Let's be fair with the chances created. I mean, it's fascinating, but I am with you. I think the power's not with him unless he comes out publicly and says, I do not want to play in a Spurs shirt again. Then
big call, isn't it?
It's a big statement.
It's a big call. I think he'll be there next season, personally. Look, Mark, the real good news is that 8,000 fans were allowed at Wembley. And it kind of felt, watching it, that it was almost close to 80,000. It's amazing the atmosphere that they can make, the fans. And it was great to see, wasn't it?
It was, and I think that we've become used to and quite numb to the fact that there aren't supporters there. And it just goes to show sort of that while we've become accustomed to it and have kind of settled for it, it just feels completely different. And hopefully once we can get sort of in June, or even in May, we can get some fans back more in June, and hopefully next season we can get back to the sort of it being the sport that we all love.
Exactly, you do kind of forget, and numb is a really good way to describe it as well. I was at a Charlton game earlier in the season where 2,000 fans were allowed, and I was thinking it's not going to make much of a difference. Let me tell you, it made a real difference. Incredible.
Well, it's bound to. I was at Rochdale Blackpool last week, and it was completely dead. So to just have 2,000 people would make a huge difference. But as it builds, I can't wait for them to come back.
Not many at Rochdale Blackpool, anyway.
No.
With the greatest
you said that,
respect.
mate. You said it, not me.
I'm joking. Dave, look, I want to get one question to you on the European Super League. I believe we still should keep it on the agenda. I mean, there have been apologies galore from English clubs, but Real Madrid president Florentino Perez is basically telling us what is going on behind the scenes, and that's that really none of the 12 want to be out of this completely. They just realise they got it wrong this time around. How do you feel that we make sure that this never happens again?
Well, I think, the apologies that come out were purely just because of the backlash from the supporters. They're very naive. They didn't realise, think that was going to happen. I think, you made a good point when we were speaking out there. Maybe the government have to get involved and put a legislation or independent regulator where they say this will not happen, for the big, have a game. Even Boris Johnson came out, last week and was totally against it. He had his say on it. So, unless someone else gets involved and puts it in writing, in law, that you cannot leave, then, maybe that's the only way. But, when you look at the clubs that are involved, of course, you look at the owners, most of them, a lot of them are American, foreign. Do they really care about our game? For me, to them, it's just about business. And, if it was to go ahead, it'd be a massive... The Premier League's the best in the world, and we want it to stay the best. And without those teams, for me, it certainly wouldn't be.
And the other 6 from Spain and Italy, they want a part of what the Premier League is about. Big clubs struggling with money. We don't need to do that. And Boris needs all the help he can get. So in terms of that, keep supporting the football and making sure it doesn't happen. Look, let's talk about the Champions League and Europa League as well. Kev, Chelsea drew 1-1 at Real Madrid Tuesday night. What did you make of the game? And let's touch on Timo Werner. He's been mentioned there. How do you see him in a Chelsea shirt? How do you get the very best out of him? Because he doesn't shirk, does he? He doesn't hide.
No, and that's what I like about him. It is a big jump to come to the Premier League. No matter where you come from, whether you come to the Bundesliga, people liken the Bundesliga to the Premier League in terms of the intensity. But sometimes it takes time. But what I like about him, he doesn't hide. He doesn't shirk. Yes, he's missing chances. You've seen the chance he missed last night in the first 5-10 minutes. He should be burying it. He just didn't look clinical. He looks like he's playing with no confidence in front of goal, but then when he's doing his runs in behind and his work rate, he doesn't look like he's lacking in any confidence. So, for me, I think I would imagine he's had many one-on-one conversations with a manager, and some managers try to play their players through these problems. The big problem is when they stop working and then you're only playing with 10 men. That's when you have to bring someone out. So I thought Chelsea in the first half last night were excellent. Real Madrid were poor, but I thought they moved the ball well. The running in behind, you could see the game plan. They're trying to stretch that age in defence. They tried to play a high line, Real Madrid, and they were getting in time after time. So I thought they were very good. A bit more even the second half, but I thought there was a lot of positives from Chelsea. Werner, he just needs to keep after training, just keep it.
You scored tons of goals in your career, but you must have gone through bad times as well. What is it like, and how do you see it?
Yeah, it's tough, but don't forget, I wasn't at that level that Werner. You're right what you said. He scored at West Ham, but people just go on about the chances that he misses. As a player, that hurts. But all you can keep doing is doing what you're doing, watching your videos of scoring goals, staying behind after training for half an hour, just keep hitting the back of net. You don't necessarily need a goalkeeper in there. Just practice it in the corners, and keep putting yourself in positions during games where you're going to score goals. And if he continues to do that, we saw early on in the season some of the goals he did score. he can score, but at the minute he's just lacking in confidence.
Yeah, and it'd still be a defender's nightmare. I still wouldn't want to play against him. Mark, I've said all along that Real Madrid are not the team they sort of once were, and Liverpool really lost their tie in one bad half and certainly had the opportunities at Anfield. Do you see Chelsea going through here, or do you think Real Madrid, it's almost their trophy, isn't it? They think it is. They can produce a bit of brilliance.
I think Chelsea will go through. That they probably should have won the game. And I was a bit worried for Chelsea in as much as playing at Real Madrid's training ground, whether you can get that intensity, because Real Madrid are used to that, and Liverpool, it felt to me like they felt they were in a practice match and they'd lost the game before they'd even realised it was taking place. But Chelsea were completely different. I think Tuchel had maybe spoken to the players because they were so good at the start and the intensity was right. Real Madrid created very little. Ramos probably be back and sort of helps them defensively, but they've still got the same issues in that they're so reliant on Benzema for goals, and he's playing brilliantly, took his goal fantastically well, but overall Chelsea I think are the better team, and then you look at what they can bring off the bench. I think that could be key as well. The options that Tuchel's got outweighs those of Zinedine Zidane at the moment.
They can dictate the second leg, can't they, and decide it's Real Madrid who have to go and score. Chelsea don't have to score as long as they keep that clean sheet, which they do really well under Tuchel. Man City are in Paris to play PSG tonight. That's Wednesday night. They're not just favourites to go through, they're favourites to win this tie. Do you go along with that?
I do, yeah. I think that they are the best team in Europe. I think they're the most complete team. What Paris Saint-Germain have got is two absolute superstars in Mbappe and Neymar that can take games away from opponents. But if you have a look at, say, some of their home matches, they were beaten by Bayern Munich. I know they still went through, but they were beaten by Bayern Munich. They were really outplayed by Barcelona as well, and I thought they were a bit lucky, actually. That could have been a lot closer, that game. I don't think Man City will give them the same kind of opportunities. They're so well balanced at the moment. Feels like a tight first leg. I wouldn't be surprised if it was a draw in Paris and then City got the job done at the Etihad.
Kev, how do you see both the first leg and the tie as a whole, and who do you think ultimately on both semi-finals will get through to the final?
I think we'll have an all-English final. I agree that I think it'll be very, very tight tonight. I think Man City will be happy with a draw, but they've got the qualities to go and win the football match tonight. Mbappe and Neymar look like they're going to be back. You keep them quiet, you've got an opportunity. And we've shown whether Man City, or they've shown whether you play with a striker or you don't, they can hurt you from all areas. Riyad Mahrez at the moment seems in unbelievable form. He's gone from a player that played a bit part beginning of the season, now he's playing nearly every game. Foden, who's outstanding. I see them. I think Pep Guardiola in his tactics tonight, he'll get them spot on. I think it'll be tight, possibly a draw, but they'll take them back to the Etihad and they'll get the job done. And I can see a Man City-Chelsea final, which I think we'd all love.
I hope so. What about the Europa League semi-finals then? Man U at home to Roma. They're odds on to win tonight, Thursday, and also go through. Agree with that?
Yeah, I do, and I think if you're looking maybe to have a bet in it, you might be better off just backing Man United to win the whole competition. I think it's a big focus for them, Ollie, to get that sort of monkey off his back in terms of not having won a trophy. I think they're considerably better than Roma, and then I would fancy them to beat Arsenal or Villarreal in the final.
Well, I mean, how do you see Arsenal-Villarreal? Because the betting suggests a lot closer. It is a lot closer, and I wouldn't be surprised actually if Villarreal get through. But it's a real tough one.
Yeah, the Unai Emery derby. It is a really tight.
He loves this competition.
He loves this competition. They've not done very well in La Liga, but I think that their mind has maybe been on this competition, much like Arsenal. I would probably just edge towards Villarreal because I just haven't seen enough from Arsenal over a sustained period. They had that little bit, didn't they, around Christmas time when they got the win over Chelsea and looked like they'd turned a corner, but haven't really done it often enough, and to maybe Villarreal, but I wouldn't be confident on either pick, to be honest. I think it's a really tight tie.
So a Champions League final involving two English teams. What about a Europa League final? How do you see it?
I'm going for it. I'm an Arsenal supporter, so I think again, what you said in terms of it hasn't been a great season for Arsenal domestically, but Europa, some teams just step up. There might be just that bit between the teeth in terms of the players to go and win something. So I actually think they'll turn up. I think they'll put in a performance, and I could see them going through. And I do see an Arsenal-Man United final.
Wouldn't that be great? All four English sides.
It'd be fantastic.
Brilliant. OK, let's get to our Premier League game previews then, shall we? First up, not quite sure you want to win this. Southampton, Leicester. Two of your former sides. How badly do you feel that Leicester needed to beat Palace on Monday? And how much credit should we give them for coming from behind when there must have been a few little voices in their head thinking, you can't let this slip after what happened last season?
Yeah, no, exactly. I think you have to give credit to Brendan Rodgers and of course the players to be where they are in the league and then to come back and win the game during the week in terms of, like you say, mentally what could possibly happen, what could go wrong. So it shows that they've got good mental strength. Of course, they've got good players. They've got a fantastic coach, and they clearly enjoy playing for Brendan. I think it'll be a tight match.
Do you feel they'll do it now? Do you feel they'll finish top four? They're 7 points above fifth. Much better goal difference, 5 games left.
Yeah, I think they've had their little blip. I think Jamie Vardy's back on the score sheet. Iheanacho's found some form that, for a long time has eluded him at Leicester. But playing in a 2 as well, I think just suits him. Playing alongside Vardy. He's taken the limelight off of Jamie a little bit, but I think Jamie's back in amongst the goals. And I see Leicester winning the game at the week. I just think they're back on that run again. And when Leicester get on a run, Vardy scores, Iheanacho scores, and I would tip them to win at the weekend with Jamie Vardy scoring. Yeah,
it's quite old school, isn't it? 2 strikers up front.
Yeah, it's rare, isn't it? Yeah. It's fantastic to see.
It is. Next 2 games, Southampton away, Newcastle at home before playing United, Chelsea and Spurs. These are the next 2 games to cement it, aren't they?
They are, yeah. I mean, even that Spurs one it feels sort of more difficult maybe than what it might actually be, but you wouldn't want to be needing sort of 4 points or 3 points even from them final 3 matches. So I think they'll be fully focused on win these 2 games, and that should do it. They might need 1 more point maybe, but as you're saying, the goal difference is strong. There'll be drop points from other teams as well. So yeah, win these 2 games and they should be in.
It was a big comeback on Monday. Kev, what do you think of Southampton, another of your former clubs? It's been a poor second half of the season and didn't lay a glove on Leicester in the Cup semi-final, did they?
No, I think they had a shot, did they, on target? Just inconsistent is the word that springs to mind. At times you thought they've cracked it. They're playing some good stuff, creating opportunities, scoring goals, and all of a sudden they completely go off the boil. And I think that's just Southampton in a whole, really. So, I think they're not mathematically safe from the Premier League, but I think they'll be fine. They'll just pick up enough points to stay in the league. So there'll be a lot of scratching heads in the summer.
What's the aim next season then?
Well, I think, to progress, keep hold of players in terms of Danny Ings.
And the manager?
And possibly the manager. Will he look to move on? I still feel he probably feels he's got a job to do there, but I think, Danny Ings is the big one. They lose Danny Ings, how do you replace him? Because he has been their main man in the last couple of seasons. A lot of scratching heads. They can't really afford to have another season like they've had this season because, they've gradually been going that way, and we know what happens to sides that can gradually do that, and we've seen it at Southampton. You slip through the door, then it's tough to come back. So I hope that doesn't happen, but yeah, just inconsistent.
If Kane does go, Ings to Spurs, we'll wait and see on that one. Okay, so you kind of give us your Betfred selection.
Yeah, I'm going to go for a Leicester away win with Jamie Vardy at score.
I'm going to go for a Leicester win. Southampton lost 12 of their last 15 Premier League matches. I do think that Hasenhüttl, his style of play, very similar to Klopp's style of play, and maybe this is not the season for playing like that.
The third game of 4 that I'm sure Leicester would have pinpointed to say, look, we've got to win all 4. It's 6 points out of 6. It will be 9 out of 9. I'm going for Leicester to win 2-0, so we're pretty much full house there. Okay, game preview 2. It's a Saturday lunchtime game. It is Crystal Palace against Manchester City. I mean, Palace did pretty well at Leicester, but this is all about City and how they react from the Carabao Cup final win and a Champions League semi-final and the second leg to come up as well, and also what team Pep puts out, because he can put out, in terms of individuals, absolute stars. But as we saw against Chelsea, it's not always easy to then play as a team, is it, when you make 7 or 8 changes?
No, it isn't, but I think, I've never seen them train, but I would imagine it's consistent training. Everyone's involved, they double up in their position, so everyone knows what's expected when they've played and when they play, and we've seen that. So I don't actually see that as being a big issue with Manchester City. Their quality players adapt. They know how to play systems, and City do that. So you're right, though. It could potentially be a tricky game with the games, and it depends, what sort of side he puts out this evening. But I just think they're on a roll. You know, they've just got so much quality, player for player. They're a lot better than what Crystal Palace are. And I can't never bet against them. I just can't see them slipping up, although it could happen. I just think they're on a roll at the moment.
As we speak, we don't know how City got on in Paris. Do you think in any way a poor result could affect their confidence, or a great result could see them take the foot off the gas?
I don't know. I just it's not really Pep Guardiola's way to do that, and the fact that he picked such a strong team for the League Cup final suggests that I don't think he's sort of thinking too far ahead all the time. I mean, he maybe felt scarred by that Chelsea performance when he did make a lot of changes. No, I think he would have probably known what team he was picking against Crystal Palace a month ago. You know, he would have plotted that out. And I mean, you think about how bad the Man City team could be. Like, it'd still have like Ake in it, who would walk into the Palace team, Zinchenko or Mendy at left back. Raheem Sterling probably doesn't get into City's best 11 at the moment. Might have to play Sergio Aguero and Gabriel Jesus. You know,
yeah,
but it's like
Playing two up front.
it's like how bad a team can he put out, and you know that is testament to, I think, his man management, because he seems to keep most of them players happy. Whether that's because they're winning trophies, I don't know, but it's a skill, I think, to be able to do that and to have the players all on board and all buying into it. And maybe that was something where Frank Lampard just fell a little bit short at Chelsea, where when the players weren't in the team, he wasn't maybe cute enough to sort of keep them involved.
OK, Palace did OK against Leicester, although they couldn't hold out. How do you think they could hurt City?
Score more goals than them.
And they don't score many, do they?
No, I think they're going to have to keep. They're going to have to defend well. They're going to have to keep a clean sheet to have any chance. You know, they have got players. They've got Zaha, who, as we well know, can hurt any team on their day. But
Eze's good. I like.
Yeah, Eze. Yeah, I think he's getting better and better. I think he'll be better next season. But they have to defend well. As simple as that, because you know Man City will keep knocking and knocking and knocking. And any lapse in concentration, you know that you'll be exploited. So I just can't see them keeping a clean sheet for 93, 94 minutes with the quality that City have got it. If they can defend well, they might just catch City on an off day, but it's very rare.
OK, Betfred selection for this one.
I'm going for a Manchester City away win, of course. Yeah, I can't see anything but.
Mark?
I'm going to go for Gabriel Jesus to score first. He has scored on his last 2 trips to Selhurst as well.
OK, I'm going for something a bit different here. I looked at the odds and I thought, in any way I can justify this. And then I thought, actually, do you know what? It's a tight turnaround from Wednesday evening to Saturday lunchtime. 2 sets of travelling going on there. The body clock could affect things. Pep will make changes. They could be disjointed, lethargic, tired, even if just from the travelling, if they didn't play on Wednesday. We saw what happened in the Chelsea game, where, yes, on paper, still a fantastic team, but they didn't gel as a team. After the Lord Mayor's show, in between the Champions League semi-finals, I'm actually going to go for a Palace 1-0 win here.
Well, Palace have beaten City a couple of times, haven't they? Normally at the Etihad. But
Yeah.
they've actually, of all the teams, they've got not a bad record against them.
I just think if ever there's a time to play City or Chelsea, and we'll come on to that in just a second, now is the time.
Yeah.
We shall see. OK, next game, it is Chelsea against Fulham. And Chelsea have an extra game to prepare for this, but it could be similar to City, where they're in between the Champions League semi-finals. What team do you think that Tuchel might pick for this one?
Well, he's got so many players that can come into the side, you know, and make a difference, who have got quality, pretty much like Man City, maybe not as big, but he has got quality in depth. And you know, will he go with the 3 at the back again and the wing backs, or will he go back to a back 4? You know, who knows? But it's clear for everyone to see that he's had a response from the players since he's come in. You know, it looks a totally different place, and generally he's got a response, hasn't he? So I as much as it's a London derby, of course, with no fans there, I just think Chelsea are gaining momentum. You know, I think they've hit form, you know, at the right time. Fulham had that, you know, that good little run, and now they've dipped, and I think, you know, it's probably just a bit too much for them. I can't see them hurting Chelsea, although, you know, you're right, they're coming off a tough week. It could be possible. I just don't see it against a quality, strong Chelsea team.
they're 90 minutes away from a Champions League final, but they can't afford to think too much about that, can they? Because, you know, the teams are desperate behind them for them to slip up.
Yeah, it was a big step, the win at West Ham, obviously, you know, with sort of that sort of cliche 6-pointer, and it has put a bit of distance there, but you can't, I mean, they've still got to play Man City, haven't they, Chelsea, so, no, Man City.
At Leicester.
Yeah, and so, I mean, again, you don't know at this stage quite what the you know what those teams are playing for, and they might feel like they've got things wrapped up. But it's a tricky run-in, and so therefore this is absolutely a crucial game. I mean, then you look at who he could bring in: Havertz, Abraham, Giroud, Ziyech can come into the side. You know, at the back maybe you take out Thiago Silva, but Hudson-Odoi, Reece James can come in. He's got a lot of options, even in goal, you know, like he's been rotating the goalkeepers a little bit, and Kepa seems to have found a bit of confidence as well. But I still feel that in between the Champions League semi-finals, it is a dangerous time for any team, because the prize of getting to that final is so great, and so it would be only natural, I think, to drop off it a little bit.
Yeah. Got to feel for Scott Parker, haven't you? Conceded late equaliser at Arsenal, conceded late winner against Wolves, were 1-0 up and cruising seemingly at Villa Park, and somehow lost that one. But if my auntie had an Adam's apple, she'd be my uncle, wouldn't she? I mean, it's but he's doing everything he can with what he's got.
Yeah, he is, and I think he's got the maximum out of those players. You know, I think Scotty's done a great job. At times during this season, I've enjoyed watching Fulham play. They play some good stuff. I just think the weekend will be just a little bit too much for them. But, you know, they have shown this season they can, you know, give anyone a run for their money. But yeah, you know, unfortunately, when you're in and around the bottom of that league, and I've been there, you know, you don't get the rub of the green. You do concede those late equalisers, and that just comes from lack of concentration. You know, at times this season, they've had to defend an awful lot, and you've had that concentration, just like we're talking about the Palace. You need to concentrate for that 93, 94 minutes. If you don't, you get penalised, and that's what's happened to them. So they'll feel aggrieved, but they'll go there with no pressure. You know, they're going to be the underdogs, and sometimes teams respond to that. So I think Scotty's done a really good job, but it's going to be a difficult run-in for them. Just
final one on Scott as well. His name's in the hat, or certainly with the bookies, on possibly being the Spurs manager. What do you think?
I feel like in time that might be the job for him. I think it'd be really difficult given where Tottenham are, and you spoke really earlier on about, you know, the manager persuading Kane to stay. If you employ somebody that's just got relegated, even though I think he's done a good job, I don't think it sends out the kind of message maybe that Levy needs to send out in terms of where he sees Tottenham. So, but I think he has progressed, and I think that sort of bigger jobs could lie in wait for him. Yeah.
Okay. Betfred selection for Chelsea Fulham.
I'm going to go for the home win. I think Chelsea are playing really well at the moment, and I'm going to predict that they win by 2.5 goals. I just think they're going to win the game fairly comfortably.
Okay.
I'm going to go for under 2.5 goals in the game. 12 of the 14 Premier League games under Tuchel have featured no more than 2 goals. And Fulham, 66% of their Premier League games also under 2.5.
Is that right? Wow. Well, I've gone for a low-score draw as well. Well, I think it's going to be a low-score draw. I do think the fact it's in between the two semi-finals, or 2 legs of the semi-final, will be something to be playing on Tuchel's mind. Not necessarily Tuchel's mind, maybe the players' minds. I don't see many goals in this one at all. Tuchel doesn't seem to win by many, does he? So I'm going for a low-score draw here. OK, a classic Premier League fixture now. It is Manchester United against Liverpool. 13 points separate them. United are second. Liverpool are outside the Champions League places, but Liverpool are favourites for this. How much is that to do with perhaps United playing Roma on the Thursday? Yeah,
possibly, and you know, Liverpool with what they've achieved in the last 18 months and what they can do on any given day. You know, it has been a fairly disappointing season. I think the last time I was in, I'd predict that they'd finish in the top 4. They've still got an opportunity of doing that with the games left. But
do you think they will?
I would have to say I've changed my mind. Don't change it very often, but I see the top 4 staying probably what they are now, if I'm being honest. But this is a classic game. You know, I think Manchester United have done fantastic this season. Chance to get to the Europa final, but I see it being tight. They always are, aren't they? United Liverpool games, whether there's a crowd in a stadium, you know, whether there's not, whether it's at Anfield, whether it's at Old Trafford. I see it being a very, very tight match. Not a lot of goals in the game, if I'm being honest. So, but they have players, both sides have players that can hurt you. You know, Rashford, of course, and Salah and Mane in the Liverpool side. But I don't see a lot of goals in this game, to be honest.
It is the ultimate fixture in the Premier League, isn't it? Do you think it's Liverpool's most important game in this fixture for a good few years? And what did you make of them against Newcastle? For Callum Wilson's goal to be... I've got to get your opinion on that as well.
I think, first of all, they should have been outside. They should have won the game. But to have that warning of the Callum Wilson one and not heed it and still manage to concede another opportunity, I think, mentality monsters was what they used to be called. I mean, they've completely lost that mentality, and I don't know if that's just because of the run they've been on or whatever, but it's a really big game because Liverpool don't want to be in the Europa League next season. It's almost better off not being in the Europa League and sort of having a clear path, because whenever these teams say, oh yeah, we can rest players, it never ends up like that. And for some reason, the managers always pick 3 or 4 or 5, and the travelling involved and the Sunday kickoffs and the quick turnaround, it's not suitable. And a team like Liverpool will feel like they should be in the Champions League, and they have to win this game if they're to stand any chance.
My dad's a Liverpool fan. He doesn't even, if they don't get in the Champions League, he doesn't want them in the Europa League. Simple as that. I don't want to sort of go down the VAR issue, but what did you make of that, the Callum Wilson? How lucky then were Liverpool, to alter, even though they had the chances to win the game? But also from Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's point of view as well, does he rest players? Because he's in between 2 very important games where really it's all about the Europa League. But can you rest players against Liverpool? Well, you're a United manager.
No, I think, if I'm a supporter, they want to win that football match, whether there's a crowd in there or not, or whatever's on it. If they're scrapping, if they've got nothing to play for, you don't. You want to win that foot. You want bragging rights. I think, you rest players now? There's only, under a handful of games left. Possibly it could be the fine, another return leg, and the fine. Do you rest players now at this stage of the season? There's an argument for it, but I just think just keep going. Speak to the players. If what can you give me? Can you give me another 90? Go for it. I get it. Maybe Christmas time when there's a lot of fixtures, but this stage of the season when there's so much riding on games, big derby, then you've got the Europa coming. For me, don't rest players. Just go with your strongest side until you keep you physically cannot, because the season's virtually upon us where we're going to be finished.
You don't ask players anymore unless you're Harry Kane. You ask a sports scientist.
Well, yeah.
And they're in the red zone. That's what it is. OK, look, it's a massive game. How do you see it? Betfred selection?
Yeah, I'm going to go for a score draw. I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw.
I don't think Manchester United should be outsiders to win this game. I would go draw no bet, so you get your money back if it's a draw. But I think Manchester United, having lost 1 game since when they lost to Arsenal on the 1st of November, 1 Premier League game they've lost since then. I think Liverpool have been overrated for this game.
I don't think there'll be many goals in this. I think they'll cancel each other out. I think United will be thinking about the second leg. I'm going for a draw here. OK, Sunday evening, Spurs against Sheffield United. How does Ryan Mason lift himself and the lads after what happened? Because they didn't just lose the cup final. It could have been 3 or 4 really, couldn't it?
Yeah, and I think you saw the reaction from the players at the end, especially Harry Kane bent over as if like the world had collapsed. They knew how big it was to try and win that trophy that they've been dying for ages. I think Ryan Mason, he'd be disappointed, but he'll be, it's new to him. I think he'll be looking forward to the game because he'll probably see it as an opportunity to get his first win on the board. I think there'll be a response from the players because I think they have got good quality players in there, attacking wise. When you've got Son, you've got Kane on a pitch, you've got Moura, Bow can come on. I think they've got players that can.
Who's playing well at the moment?
Well, yeah, it's they've had periods this season, haven't they, where there's been some unbelievable players who have played so well, and then they go through periods where, even Harry Kane's been a bit quiet. You would have to say he's been their main player, hasn't he? Creative and scoring goals. So. I see Tottenham. I see a big response from Tottenham. I think Ryan Mason will have chance this week to go in and use his coaching knowledge, which he's learned. He's still learning. He'll have his own ideas. He'll have his own. The players might respond to a different voice. Although it was a very quick turnaround to the cup final. Now he's had a bit of time to work with them, get his point across. I see a response from the players, and I see it. I wouldn't say it'd be a comfortable win, but with what's happened to Sheffield United, obviously being relegated, they got a good win last week, of course. Pressure's not on them, but I just see a response from Tottenham this weekend.
It's a big game for Ryan, isn't it? It's a big game for the players. Big game for Daniel Levy, I suppose, as well.
Yeah, I mean, they haven't given up on top four yet. I mean, they'd probably have to win every game. It's a favourable run in, I think you'd say. And, Leicester last, if you can get within three. He'll be saying, if we can get within 3 points of Leicester, we can turn that game into a cup final. You beat Sheffield United. They've got Wolves, who are well out of form, Aston Villa as well. So they've got...
I love that glass half full look.
Well, but that's how he has to lift the players, by sort of, and where I said that Liverpool missing out on Europa League, it wouldn't be a big deal. I don't see Tottenham being in that place, and actually the Europa League offers an opportunity to them. So to finish in the top 6 would still be an achievement of some sort. So I think that they'll be focused enough on this game to make sure that there's no mishaps. And Sheffield United had that amazing win at Old Trafford, but away from home, 14 defeats in 16. I mean, that's a bit of a joke, isn't it, really? I mean, it's awful form.
Yeah. How do you, just one on Sheffield United, I mean, obviously they're down. The pressure's off. They can go and play. They got a win last week. Is this the perfect opposition for Spurs or for Sheffield United?
It's a tricky one. I think it's a tricky game. It's always, as we know, whenever you play against a team that's, they've already been relegated, they've got nothing to play for, they're coming up against a team where they want to get a scalp, it can be dangerous. And if you don't approach it right mentally, then you can come undone. I think the message from the Sheffield United camp is just go and enjoy it. Finish the season on a high. We had a good win last week. There's no pressure. Players are playing for their career, their futures. So it could be a real tricky game for Tottenham. But I just see with the quality they've got, I think a response from them as well, and especially the likes of Harry Kane will see it as an opportunity to get on the score sheet. So I think it'll be just probably a bit too much for Sheffield United.
Okay, so what is your Betfred selection?
I'm going for a Tottenham win, and I'm actually going to say I'm going for a Harry Kane hat-trick. I think he'll respond and he'll be on the score sheet, definitely.
He'll be sniffing that golden boot for sure.
Yeah.
I'm going to go for Tottenham half-time, full-time. I think that Sheffield United, even though they beat Brighton, they still gave up a lot of opportunities. You do that to Kane, it's only ending one way.
I think it's be a bitty game this, but I'm going with you, Tottenham win. I'm going with Harry Kane to score, but just the one. I think it'll be just the one goal, to be honest. Okay, let's move on to our best fantasy football picks, where each of us pick a player that we believe will star this weekend. Who have you gone for, Kev?
Well, I've gone for someone who just gets better and better, and I think he'll be eventually one of the Premier League's all-time greats. I think Phil Foden for me. He's been outstanding. Yeah, it's almost like a natural pick, an obvious pick, but I think of course it depends, on the game tonight, whether he does play or not. But if he does play, he oozes quality, and he makes the game look so easy. And we've played with players before and watched players over the years that do that. I just love watching him play, and I think he'll start this weekend.
Who does he remind you of then, in terms of comparison? And does he start for England in the Euros?
For me, he starts. Why would you not start him if he finishes the season strong and continues to progress? It just depends where you play him, but I think you have to find a position to put him in the side because he's that good. He is, undoubtedly going to be one of the Premier League's greatest players. Yeah,
it's difficult to put a name on. I'm thinking out of something, and I'm thinking, do you know what? There's too much pressure on him.
Yeah, there is, and it's I wouldn't liken him to a Scholes or someone that someone who used to make the game look so easy. He's his own kind of player, and he scores goals as well, which is an added quality.
He's got the enthusiasm of Gaza. I don't think he's the same type of player necessarily as Gaza, but he just has that sort of love of the game and wanting to sort of just not embarrass defenders, but he does. Yes. And I think Gaza, when he was sort of in his absolute pomp, used to do that as well, from a different position, different player, but same kind of characteristics.
And he runs with it. He's not just a really good passer. He runs with the ball so well as well, doesn't he? So yeah, potential is endless. Who have you gone for?
I've gone for. I think Spurs will give Sheffield United a bit of a going over. And I expect Gareth Bale to come back into the team because it's an easier game. The cup final against City is a different beast to this. Gareth Bale has scored 5 goals in his last 3 home starts for Spurs, and he hasn't really turned up in the big games, but he's been really good at sort of mopping up against these kind of average to bottom half Premier League teams, and I see no reason for that to change.
Okay, I'm going with someone who you've already mentioned, and I actually picked him a week or two ago as well, Kelechi Iheanacho. Been absolutely superb. He's outshone Jamie Vardy in the second half of this season. Scoring for fun, got the winner against Palace, got the winner in the Cup semi-final, confidence sky high. And I think up against the Southampton side that are really struggling as well. So for me, Kelechi Iheanacho. And final one now as well. Let's go for the team treble. One team that we think will win this weekend and why?
Well, we've just mentioned it. I think there's going to be nothing but a Tottenham win against a team that's relegated. Coming off the back of the disappointment, I think there will be a response. He'll pick the strongest team he possibly can. And like I say, I see Harry Kane. I predict he'll get a hat-trick, so I think they'll get a hat full of chances. So my nailed on one will be Tottenham win.
Okay, Mark.
I'm going to Monaco. Not unfortunately.
Can I come with you?
Yeah. Not in real life, but for my bet. Monaco. It's a really big game in France. Monaco against Lyon. Monaco are in fantastic form. You wouldn't have thought they could have got into the title race, but they've won 14 of their last 17 league matches in this calendar year. That includes a victory, deserved ones at that, against Paris Saint-Germain. Lyon, they've lost 2 of their last 5. They were against 2 of the teams that are above them. That was PSG and to Lille. Monaco are the other team above them, and I think that they can do the business as well. And Niko Kovac, the former Bayern Munich boss, was seen as not good enough for Bayern, completely out of his depth. He seems to have found his level in Monaco anyway.
Great race for the title in Spain. Great race in France as well. Just on that, how do you see it?
I still feel that Lille will slip up somewhere, and that will mean that Paris Saint-Germain win it. Lille have got a big derby coming up in a couple of weeks against Lens, who will probably want to derail it. But there were wild scenes when they beat Lyon 3-2 last weekend with a late goal, so it's still in their hands. You couldn't ask for more going into the final lap of the season, but I see Paris winning all of their matches, and Lille may one slip may cost them.
Okay. Well, I've mentioned Kelechi Iheanacho, so I'm going to go Leicester. They're on a mission to finish in the Champions League place after what happened last season. I don't think they're going to let it slip this time around. I think Southampton are a poor side right now, and I think they'll take advantage of that, just like they did in the FA Cup semi-final. So for me, it's Leicester and 6-1, that team treble. Kev, that's it. Had fun?
Yep, great fun.
You have to say that though, don't you?
Yep. No, I have.
What are you up to this weekend, anyway?
Yeah, not a lot. I'm going to spend the rest of the day in London, have a mooch around, and then enjoy the football over the weekend.
Brilliant. Enjoy the sights. Good to see you. Good to have your
guys.
company. And Mark, as ever, thank you. Okay, that's it for this week. We're back next week. We'll look back and see how Kev's predictions have gone on. And of course, remember, on behalf of the Racing Post and Betfred, if you are to gamble, please gamble responsibly.